Okay, this is a follow-up for the circles part 1 and circles part 2 that you did on your handout. We're going to talk about some definitions and find some circumference. As we look at some of the definitions on this slide, like what is a circle, what is the radius, what is the diameter, what is the perimeter, and the first and easiest one to go over is the radius of the circle. So you start with the center of your circle, like so. And the radius is the distance from the center to an outside edge. And that is called the radius. So it's the distance from the center to an outside edge. And there can be obviously an infinite amount of radiuses. You can put the radius anywhere you want it. Oops, went too far. Pretend I didn't. Just a guess. Okay, what is the diameter of a circle? Okay, I'm going to erase some of this. Well, the diameter is basically twice the radius. So if this is the radius, this distance, then this would be the diameter. So the diameter is 2 times the radius. And it's the length from one outside edge to the opposite edge. Now, here's the thing. This is the line that goes from one outside edge to the opposite edge. So a key fact is that you go through the center. And these are in fact called chords, but they go through the center. Okay, so now let's go back to what is a circle, the very first definition on the top of the slide. A circle is easy to imagine, but it's much more difficult to explain. So essentially, if you think about how to make a circle, you have the center of a circle, and then you have the distance from the center to an outside edge, which is the radius. Well, all around this circle are points. And if you connect all those points, they form the circle. The problem is we can't see those points because if I choose another color, let's choose purple. 2 points right there. If I choose a point between those 2 points, there's another point between those points and another point and another point. So basically, if you keep making points, eventually all the points merge and you get a circle. And if you connect all the dots, like when you're a little kid, that forms that shape. So how are we going to define a circle? So a circle is a set of connected points equidistant from a center point. So they're the same distance away from the center. Oh, that's the worst center word. Okay, so the last thing we want to define is the perimeter of a circle. So the perimeter is the distance around the outside edge. And for a circle, it has a special name. I don't know why it couldn't just be called perimeter, but it's called circumference. Okay, that's all the definitions. The most important thing to note on this slide is some definitions. A couple of things of note are that pi right here, pi is essentially 3.1415926 ... Pi goes on forever and it never repeats. You should have a calculator with pi in it, but if you don't, you can usually approximate it by the first 4 decimal places. The other is that what we discovered in our handout was that the ratio of circumference divided by diameter was equal to pi. So this was our 3 and a little more that we discovered. Okay. The last thing to note, and it's perhaps the most important, is down here, circumference. Circumference is pi times the diameter, or pi times 2r, because diameter is equal to twice the radius. And how do we know circumference equals pi times the diameter? Well, remember the red string, the circumference is equal to 3 and a little more times the diameter. So that's how we knew that. Here are just a couple of pie jokes, pumpkin pie, and then also talking about how pi goes on forever and ever and ever and never repeats. Okay, so now we're going to look at a couple of examples of finding circumference given a value. For the first one, it says, find the circumference of a circle with radius 2 meters. So I'm going to draw a circle. It's horrible, but bear with me. And we know that our radius is 2 meters. So we have the distance at the center, and we have the distance from the outside edge to the center. And this is our radius, and it is 2 meters long. So circumference is equal to 2 pi r, or it's equal to pi times the diameter. So our circumference, if our radius is 2, then our diameter is another 2 meters. So our diameter is 4 meters. So it's pi times 4 meters. So pi times 4 on our calculator. So we can either leave it as 4 pi meters. That's one answer. Or you can put it in our calculator and we would get 12.57 meters. Either one of those answers is good enough. Okay. So now let's look at, and I'm going to highlight the center of the circle. There's the center. Okay, now let's look at the next circle. The next circle, there's our center. The next circle has a circumference already. They tell us that the circumference is 15 pi miles. And we have to figure out the radius. So basically, we don't know the radius. Okay, so, but we do know that the circumference equals pi times the diameter. So we know that the circumference is pi times the diameter, and that also equals 15 pi. So looking at this equation right here, pi times the diameter equals 15 pi. That means the diameter has to be 15 because I have a pi on both sides that I can cancel out. So if the diameter is 15 miles, so that means this distance is 15 miles. How much is the radius? Well, the radius is half of that. So it's half of 15 miles. So the radius is 7.5 miles. And that's our final answer. Okay, so you have two examples of how to either find the circumference given the radius or find the radius given a circumference. Okay, so we are going to use quizzes for our homework. It is a free online system that you can use for any grade, really. The first step you need to do is click on the link and sign up for our class. And make sure to use your name and email that I'll recognize. And in there, you will see a quiz or an assignment titled Circles Part 1 and 2 for circumference. And you can do that by the due date. All right, let me know if you have any issues.